Hello everyone. Welcome to ARV Trees podcast. I am Fatima, the host of this show. Trees are one of my favorite beings in nature and I enjoy learning about them. There are not many podcasts that talk about trees, so I started this show to spread awareness about some common Indian trees. Every week, I share my stories related to the tree of the week, describe it to you in detail, and then help you with keys to identify it in the wild. So come along with me, let's explore the beautiful world of trees. In the book The Overstory, Richard Powers mentions plant blind to describe people who see plants but don't perceive them or reflect about them. The term plant blindness was coined in 1999 by botanists J.H. Wandersee and E.E. Schuessler. This is a very important term as it helps us to understand people who fail to notice plants and easily overlook them. They might have many leafy or ornamental plants and even mighty trees in front of them or in their neighborhood, but they would barely register them in their consciousness other than green things. This blindness affects people's ability to learn more about plants, empathize with them, and then generate meaningful reactions and actions towards saving them. There is also an opposite term for people who pay attention to plants, plant aware. I like this term and I'm glad I have always been a plant aware person. I've consciously noticed the plants around me wherever I've been to, but that doesn't imply that I've always spent conscious effort to learn more about them. Sometimes focus shifts and we lose perspective, but it's always good to have a foundation, which in my case is the awareness of plants I gained by spending a childhood in forested area, seeing them, loving them, whether it be small plants or large trees. I remember there was a phase when I was obsessed with flowering ornamental trees. And while I didn't spend much time learning about them consciously, I'm glad I at least noticed them and remember them. Well, the reason I'm talking about the terms plant blind and plant aware is because the tree which I'm going to talk about today made me realize how even ardent tree watchers like me can become plant blind sometimes. But great trees, like good friends, drag us back to focus. Today's tree is the Indian almond tree, and before I discuss it in detail, let me recount to you my story about this tree. When I first came to South India to study, the first thing I noticed was the greenery in the university campus. The pathway to my hostel was lined with trees on both sides, and in their cool shade, I used to feel a gratifying respite from the scorching sun of Chennai. But apart from their usefulness, I didn't pay them any special attention. In short, I had become plant blind. It was a temporary condition for me, though. Neither was I plant blind person before coming to this place because I had lived of my childhood amid trees, and I knew them well enough. Nor did I stay blind towards trees and plants around me for long after that. I suppose the new place and its stress had stunned me and taken away from me what I always was, a nature lover. The only thing that I really noticed about them was that they had large leaves, and sometimes their leaves fell and blew in drifts and carpeted the pathway. That was not a bad observation, but not very particular either, and that is all I saw and remembered. And that is how time passed, and I didn't put any special effort to learn more about those trees except a bit sporadic bird watching around them. It was only when I came to Bangalore that my inner nature lover awakened from sleep, and rightly so, because Bangalore has many Indian almond trees and I couldn't stop noticing them anymore. I saw those leaves again, and I remember those trees from my university days. And this time I paid more attention. I noticed their phenology, how in the dry months their leaves turned russet and red and dropped, how their nuts, when freshly formed, were green and then slowly turned to brown and then dark red, how their branches fanned out horizontally in symmetry with the seasons, and sparse, squat trees turned bushy with high and dense crown and gave them a high and straight rounded look. I had those trees which I eventually came to know as Indian almond in my office campus, commute routes, and home neighborhood. The most ardent of plant blind would be able to ignore them, but not me. I saw them, took their photos, and really loved them a lot because they made me realize more than any other tree that Indian autumn has its shade in trees too, with its yellow, red, and russet leaves in a tree, which up until then I'd only seen in autumn and fall photos of other places. Now, with an Indian almond as my neighbor, I feel the changing of season from autumn to winter more acutely, as much as I feel winter to spring, when its new leaves come up and its flowers and fruits come up, along with my dear Karanj and Pongamia tree. And I'm glad that from being a tree blind, I became a tree aware again because of this beautiful and awesome tree. And I will always remember this tree as a friend who helped me to restore my plant or tree awareness. Terminalia catappa belongs to the white mangrove or Indian almond family. Its other English names, which I really like, are sea almond, beach almond, and tropical almond. Despite its name almond, the tree is not related to the actual almond, which actually belongs to the rose family. The genus name Terminalia comes from the Latin word terminus, which refers to the leaves which sprout from the end of the branches, shoots, and twigs of the tree in this genus. The species name Catappa may sound familiar to those who have watched the Bahubali movies, but the name really comes from the tree's Malay name Ketapang. This tree is semi deciduous, which means it keeps its leaves most of the year but drops them sometimes all at once during dry months. Its branches grow in distinct levels that give it a symmetrical look, but as the tree grows older, it becomes more bushy and its level of branches hide behind the dense foliage. Now let's learn about its different parts. The leaves of Indian almonds are simple. They are large and oval. The color of the leaves varies according to the phase it's going through. The fresh leaves are lime greenish and turn dark red upon maturing. They grow in a flowery cluster in the branches. As the tree is deciduous, it goes through a phase when it starts dropping its leaves. In such a phase, the leaves start to turn pink and then russet red, after which they turn yellow and brown. Then the leaves shrivel up and drop. The reason for this transformation to red is that before shedding leaves during the dry period, the tree harvests the chlorophyll present in the leaves by breaking them down and storing them in its trunk, twigs, and roots. These chlorophyll and nutrients are energy consuming for the tree to produce. Hence, it's good for the trees to reuse them later. Once the nutrients are gone, other pigments present in the leaves become apparent. In the case of Indian almond, it's the pigment anthocyanin that gives the leaves their rich red look. I love this botanical fact about trees, how there are different types of pigments in leaves that help leaves absorb light differently, and then how leaves reuse these resources so that there is no wastage of them when the leaves are shed. Isn't it amazing? Well, after the leaves fall, the new leaves start coming up after a week or so, as I've observed in my neighbor's tree. And then the flowers start blooming too. The flowers of Indian almond are small and without petals. They grow at the tip of the twigs or spikes, and you can differentiate them as small, green white, pollen loaded, droopy stalks, similar to grainy stalks of millets. The reason why these flowers are inconspicuous and not so showy is that they don't need to attract pollinators. The same tree has both male and female flowers, and they are called monoecious. In such a case, the tree is generally wind pollinated. This is so that the tree's self pollination is avoided as much as possible, and instead, pollen is carried to the other trees by wind pollination. In this way, the tree's flowers are pollinated. Self pollination does happen in trees and is useful when trees are individuals in their location, but mostly trees try to avoid it if possible. This is a whole vast topic on its own, so I may try to cover it along with other interesting botanical facts in some bonus episodes. The fruits begin to form soon after pollination. The fruit of the Indian almond is a drupe. It is flattened and almond shaped with a hard casing and a single seed inside. It is green in the beginning, and as the fruit starts maturing, it turns yellow and then finally dark brown or blackish. The dried fruit can be cracked open and its seed is edible. Just lightly toast them and enjoy them like any other crunchy nut. The seed or nut is similar to the nutritional value of almonds and contain oil, but they are not widely used as such. Sadly, even though I have known this tree for so long now, I have not really eaten its seed yet. Maybe after realizing this now, I'll give it a try after all. The bark of the Indian almond is grey brown and smooth. With age, the bark becomes rough. The wood is reddish, it's strong and water resistant, hence good for use as a construction material for railway sleepers and furniture. The Indian almond is native to tropical regions of Asia. While it is native to India and so must be found in the wild growing on its own, I have always seen this tree planted in avenues and roadsides in cities and towns only. Of course, for its beautiful symmetry and shade. Not to mention, their leaves and their sap green color cool the eyes. The nuts of this tree, as I've already mentioned, are edible, while humans generally ignore them as the nuts are considered not as tasty as real almonds and other nuts. Animals and birds know their importance as good food source of nutrition, and so fruit bats, parrots and miners, rabbits, deer and squirrels all equally relish these fruits. The leaves are also a good food source for browsing animals that can reach the lower branches. The leaves also contain many kinds of chemicals, compounds such as tannins, saponins, flavonoids, and alkaloids that are considered good to consume for health benefit. These leaves are also much sought after by aquarium owners. The tannin rich leaves are dropped into the aquarium water as tannin lowers pH levels of water, which is preferred by many fish, such as betta fish. Also, the beneficial compounds in the leaves leach into the water, which act as an antibacterial, antimicrobial, and also benefit the fish in health. These points, which I have mentioned, though, are mostly touted by aquarium owners and are not scientifically studied in detail. Yet, people who own fish observe and know for sure the benefits of these leaves in their fish tank. Anyway, like other deciduous trees, the heap of leaves that fall at once create a cushion of cozy abode for small critters in the wild, and the decomposing leaves enrich the soil. The tree also has a strong root system and prevents soil erosion, and is equally good as a tree buffer to protect surrounding places against battering winds. Hence, it's a good tree to plant in your neighborhood. It seems that there's so much this tree has to share with us, and yet, more than anything, what really catches humans' eye is aesthetics only, which sadly makes them overlook the other things that this tree has to offer. Now that I've gone through many different aspects of this tree, let me walk you through the parts of this tree that you can use to identify it. But before that, let me just say that no matter how well I read or research about a tree, there's always so much more to know that there's no way to cover all aspects of a single tree in a single episode because the tree is a universe in it itself, full of facts and minute detail. And there's so much that has not even been studied or known about trees yet. Also, I like to keep the episode length short and succinct for the listeners who both enjoy listening and gain facts without the episode getting too long and boring. If you wish for longer format audios, do let me know in my blog, and I will adjust the length of the episodes according to my loyal listeners. Well, back to identification keys. The first one is the large and oval leaves, which are fresh or dark green. The second is the nuts, which, if observed closely, are visible in the upper branches. The green or reddish brown oval and flat nuts are easy to point out. The third, but the really most important one, is the general shape and structure of the tree. The branches spike out straight from the tree and grow in layers, and the tree has a straight trunk and bushy look. All these facts can be combined together to be sure that what you are looking at is an Indian almond tree. As always, I will post many photos on my blog to help you identify it too, so do check it out. And that's all for today's episode. For all my episodes, I refer to several resources and add my own observations. You can find the complete list of resources on my blog. You can find the link to my blog in the About tab. Subscribe to our Ear with Trees podcast in the app of your choice and share this podcast for the sake of tree love. Thank you all. Stay tuned.